Okay, go ahead.
Okay. One of the things about poetry is that allows me to put to words experiences and feelings and things that I just know that doesn't always, that there's not always easily words for it. So you can imagine way back when being a slave, imagine yourself that, and just being a slave for life. And that's just it. That's what your kids are going to be, your grandkids. And then all of a sudden a mule arrives with a proclamation that your country has just declared all slaves free. And actually, it didn't just declare it. It actually happened a few months ago, but it took this long for the mule to get from Washington down to Texas. That's
Right.
one of the stories behind what the name of what Juneteenth is, and the glory and the happiness that just erupted when that announcement finally made its way to Texas from Washington, D.C. And so that's where the Juneteenth celebration comes in. And now today, there's an annual, a lot of communities will come together and just have a festival and just honor Black folks, honor our U.S. history, and there's a lot of goods being sold, craft works and dances and performances and artists, those sorts of things. So that's a little bit about Juneteenth, and that's only one of the stories of how it came to be. There's other stories of how it came to be, especially now that it's a federal holiday. Hooray!
As of what was it, when did they declare that? That was like this week or something, wasn't it? Wasn't that was
Yeah.
recent?
Yeah, I believe Biden signed it on the 17th. Was that recent? I think so. Not even yesterday, I
Yesterday,
guess, or the
yeah,
day
I think
before,
so.
or Wednesday. Yeah, so it was very, very new legislation that just passed. So for me, I when I was living in Santa Cruz, California, I attended the Santa Cruz Juneteenth Festival, and it was at a place called London Nelson Community Center, and it was named after a slave who actually made his way out to former slave made his way out to Santa Cruz, purchased land, and then on his death bequeathed it to the city to create a school for kids, which is
Mhm.
just crazy that a former slave would have that kind of wealth and that kind of just foresight and just
Hmm.
graciousness. And there's been now it's called London Nelson. There's been some questions about how his name was spelled. Anyway, I attended one
Right.
of the festivals there, and this poem emerged from just looking around and noticing it, how it felt to be there and thinking about the meaning of Juneteenth and the history of it, and to have that moment finally recognized, which makes this moment even sweet to read the poem. So I think I answered your
Excellent.
question. Yeah.
Yes, that's a very good answer. I think a lot of people will learn a lot from that. It's a very deep history behind a lot of these things, and uh, a lot of people, do say, and I think it's true that the root of almost every American problem is slavery. Has been slavery. A lot of our issues stem from those issues still
Yeah.
going on. I think. Here, feel
Mhm.
free. Read the poem, and we'll see. We'll talk about it a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So the poem is called, like the holiday. The poem is called Juneteenth, and I'm very glad for this poem and for the goodness, I've forgotten the word, the prize that it was nominated
Push
for.
cart.
Pushcart. Thank you. Woo.
Mhm.
um, Juneteenth. Some come for the music, some for the something from nothing recipes, 2 3 centuries old, nourishment like a hug from the ancestors. Some come to make money, some to spend. Made this myself, half price today. Twinkle in her deep brown spies the bill stamped black money. This time they really do reap what they sow. Some come for the crowds, some for the green open space, warm, inviting talk, and a chance to see all in the absence of urgency. And the children run free like schools of sardines, echoing the kelp-like crowd, lacing the kelp-like crowd in jubilee. And the ancestors, smiling, whisper in trees, say, sun rays, ease my pain, let me rest in peace.
Hmm. Where did those last couple of lines come from? Was that like a did you just kind of make that up, or was that from a song? Or
I'm sure I've heard the "Let Me Rest in Peace." I'm sure I've heard those. I'm sure I've heard it before, but no, it all just came from me. But
huh,
more it was the images and just thinking about it, and again,
the
really just
grandeur,
feeling, feeling
right?
what it was like to be in this community and people like calling out to each other. Hey, so and so, I haven't seen you in a while. Hey, come check out my new earrings, whatever. When y'all
Right.
want some snow cones or whatever, it was
So
being sold.
big
And
big
Mhm.
festival going on, just
Right.
celebration of the events that, the emancipation and
Mhm.
the ensuing, dragging out the, I mean, drag the freedom and equality kind of just been dragging out throughout history, and it's very unfortunate that we do have a great society, I think, but it's been so much trouble for Black Americans, and I think it's good that that we have the celebration now as a federal holiday. I
Yeah.
think it's wonderful that that we're able to recognize steadily progress, as we would anticipate from a country founded on the ideals of life and liberty, and
Mhm.
pursuit of happiness.
Right. I think so. And in terms of Black American history, I think it's a fail for all of us because I think there's
Yes.
when we come together as a diverse country, this America, I love it. But we're such a social experiment. I mean, there's no other place on earth that has this that courted diversity on purpose. And yet,
Right.
can we all learn from each other in order to create the best quality of life we can in this country? I think we can do it. We're learning how in
Absolutely.
this past few months, few years has been really huge in progress in that. But I
Hmm.
think it's something really huge, and it's really neat for me in Juneteenth. This particular Juneteenth was on a green space in Laurel Park in California, in Santa Cruz, California, and
Hmm.
it was interesting to watch people come and sort of mix. And then as the day just kind of settled down, and everyone sort of moved onto their own little picnic blankets, but the kids were just lacing the crowd and running around and just like
Hmm.
they all came together the way kids do. They don't care which blanket you belong to. It's a kid gang, and so they're just running
Right.
around, and it just reminded the next generation is really what takes it and runs. And sort of we have the vision, but they figure out how to play with it to
Right.
get
We
it
go back
actually.
to the themes of play, and
Yes.
again back to that theme of we were talking about earlier about the way that it can be a street game, it can be kids having fun, and it
Yeah.
can be a an actual formal basketball, football, whatever,
Right.
sports, poetry. It's true. I mean, the kids, like, it's weird how you see kids and they just sort of like don't have the kind of anxious consciousness that we have so much where we worry over what the next person thinks or what they're trying to what differences between the people, and all that. They just get together and have a good time, and
Mhm.
we need more of that. We need more of that amongst the adults, and I think poetry does a fine job of
I,
bringing people
mhm.
into that circle. And then you can throw out weird questions like, is there really any actual progress?
Yeah. Well, that's a great poetry helps adults play. That's neat. And yeah, it kind of takes the edge off that last question. What is
Right.
progress and have we had it? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a serious question. I mean, is there have we had? I think we could say we have had some progress, quite a bit of progress, but I think it still is. There's still some little glitches in our nature. I think that
Hmm.
have
Hmm.
time working those out. Those little glitches out. So, I think we still have a little time. I think I'm not quite sure how long, but I had a couple other questions. When you were in Finland, what did you find most interesting and unique and different about Finnish culture that, as compared to the United States?
Um, well, it's I wanted to go and come back with the big observations and big looming just I understood this and it helped me change my life. But it was the little things that
Hmm.
really mattered, and I realized how interesting and different we are. One is I tried to learn Finnish. It's an incredibly hard language.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
yeah, like kind of like Hungarian. It's just Estonian. It's just really hard language. So I can
Hmm.
say Mitä kuuluu and Hyvää joulu, which is how are you and Merry Christmas, and that's about it.
Yeah, well, that'd be
So
kind of strange to say in the middle of summer or something. How are you? Merry Christmas. And people are like,
yes,
what are you talking about?
I know
Christmas in
exactly.
July.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Come on. Don't you know the holiday? Christmas in July.
Right, right. Yeah. So some like everyday things became a little bit of a challenge because of the language issues.
Hmm.
And one thing was grocery shopping. So because it wasn't even, it was a different alphabet that was being used. So like and then the products were different. So like we have yogurt and cottage cheese and milk. they have like so many products that come between those. You know, they have like sour milk and, you know, different levels of fat in your cottage yogurt, and you know, just different,
Hmm,
lots of different things. So I would
interesting.
just, yeah, I would just stand in any particular grocery store aisle forever trying to figure out like which one, you know, is it? And I thought, you know, that at one point, this happened over and over again. I thought I was at the appropriate distance to announce to other people that I am shopping here. You know, this is my area that I'm looking at. And, you know, so not too far apart, not too close, but, you know, not too far apart from the products. And Finn would just come right between me and the products and grab what they want and then go. And I'm like, wait, I was shopping here. And I would say, excuse me, whatever. You know, and I
Hmm,
realized, okay, well, first of all, it's just Finns don't really talk that much. They're just a really quiet people. They're forest people. And
hmm,
for them, they have a really different way of life. Like they're more introvert than not as a nation and as a people.
hmm.
Um, and so it's okay. I learned that it's okay for Finns to not talk, even when like don't talk. It's not okay. Just don't talk. Bus stops, you know, on the bus, cell phones on the bus was a big problem because Finns would just look at you in disapproval, like hush, you know, like so strangers just don't talk, which is, you know, not at all like what I'm used to in the South. Hey, you know, whether or not you know someone, how's it going, you know, down
Hmm.
walking on the street. But with Finns, even though you don't talk to somebody, it's okay to touch. And the spatial distance is different. So it's okay for someone to be right next to me, you know, or just come between, you know, me and the grocery store aisle. Um, and it's okay if you're outside and you're freezing, you might not talk to each other, but it's okay to take off your glove and put it on somebody's face if you see it's getting frostbite. You don't say anything, but you can stop. So
Wow, that's interesting.
yeah, so just the real difference between, you know, when it's okay to engage and how, you know, by physically or by through talking was different.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then another thing I noticed is like as you'll hear the call and response thing I just mentioned, you know, as a Black woman who grew up mainly in the South, you speak when you're spoken to, or you speak to elders, you have that respect, meaning, you know, whether or not you know somebody, you just say hello. And the history of that really comes like, again back to slavery times,
Hmm.
where other Blacks recognized each other because legally Blacks were only three fifths of a person, legally weren't considered a full person. So a way to counteract that was to just this way of acknowledging someone, whether it's with words or just a nod or something. And in Finland, which is used to be more homogenous, used to be really mainly white Nordic folks, and now it's much more changing. There's a lot of they're bringing in a lot of the immigrants who are coming in from Africa and other places, and it's just more diverse. Not like Philadelphia or not like places in the U.S., but it's a little bit more diverse than it ever was. And so I in Finland, I'd be walking around and visiting other parts of Europe. I'd walk around and I'd see other Black folks, and I would nod and I'd try to acknowledge them. I'd try to say hello, and I slowly realized that I am a Black American and that other countries don't have that history of, you know, acknowledging each
Hmm.
other the way Black Americans do. And so that
Interesting.
was, yeah. And for me, it got back. I wanted at some point I figured I'd have a family, and being in academia, I figured I'd be in an interracial family, which I am in one. And so I wanted my kids to experience life in a different country to just see how socially constructed race is and race relations are. And so I got that, even though at the time I didn't have a family, I was just there by myself. But for me, that was a really, I wanted that and I really got it, even though ways I didn't expect. I got that out of living in Finland for a year.
Wow, that's quite a lot of knowledge from for a 1 year trip. You know, you get the comparison. I mean, it's a totally different society, and you know, you learn of the history. I didn't know a lot of the stuff about the head nod, and I mean, I knew a little bit, but not much. I'm a certified Southerner, so I'm in Houston, and so I've lived in the South most of my life, but they don't teach you a lot of things, so they keep silent on all that stuff.
Yeah.
We have a remaining, 2 or 3 minutes if you want to, say thank you to anybody out there that's influenced you, or give a few words of advice to fellow writers and creative minds.
Oh, yeah, sure. There's just so many folks to thank in my book. You know,
Hmm.
certainly my fiance, Sandy Harrell, I love and, you know, appreciate, thank her so much, and her
Hmm.
son, Mitchell. Um, and, you know, all the folks who are in my writing background and writing with Ellen Bass and the folks at Finishing Line Press and um, the smaller organizations, the small presses, the independent bookstores. Bookshop Santa Cruz is selling my book. A Novel Idea here in Philadelphia is selling my book. It's folks like you with Parrot Literary Corner, which I appreciate so much. That's really, I think, important, especially now, to be able to share our different views and
Mhm.
figure out how we relate to each other, and sort of uh, stay sane in the midst of what's been
Right.
a really
Have
kind of
conversations.
crazy
Right.
time. Right.
Yeah.
Conversation engagement is so important. Um, and I guess if there's any advice, it's just to really think about the engagement and how audience really does play a key part, I think, in what artists and writers do. And I think it's an important one. Um, and just to sort of be cognizant of it and to recognize and just to be aware of it. It's hard for me, like, especially coming from Finland. Finns don't really tell people what to do. Like, they don't say "Have a nice day." They say "I hope you have a good day," which I've adopted. So, so, so when I think about giving advice, I think, yeah, I don't really have any.
Suggestions, anything. Well, that's fine. It's. I think that being attuned to the audience is good. It's definitely something that a lot of people do not, necessarily, or they're not as cognizant of. Sometimes we just get up and read whatever we're comfortable with, and don't think
Yeah,
maybe the audience is attuned to this.
yeah.
Maybe it's not something they're interested in hearing that day, or it's.
Mhm.
I hear a lot of musicians say that the energies of the audience feed into their own energies in their playing.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of musicians say that, so I think it kind of applies a little bit sort of to the poetry too.
Yeah, I think so. Whether it's, an audience sitting in front of you or just thinking about your audience as you go through the different drafts and manuscripts.
Mhm.
Yeah, and sometimes I think, like just even knowing where your poetry sits in the history of times, like this is, there's a lot going on in this particular book, Sweating It Out. I really bring in issues of blended families, of mental illness and health, of sort of coming of age, and not just that teenage to adulthood, but of older, and taking on what happens when you become the matriarch or the patriarch in your family, and so it just takes on a number of different issues. And I think um, thinking about how those issues are, there's a dialogue of going on with our
Right.
audience, whether it's our society or your literary circles that you run in. And I think that sometimes feeds what we decide to write and what we don't, and how we can engage with that dialogue and push it, or even put it, maybe help it turn a different path, or just consider different perspectives. And so I see, when I say audience, I think of it in both sort of that really
Both in
obvious way.
open page. And well, thank you for joining us today, Deborah. It's been wonderful talking with you. It's been a great history lesson here on the New York Parrot Literary Corner, as well as we talked about sports program, the sports poetry, and how that relates to life, and the various metaphors that layered life has so many metaphors. And this has been with Deborah Turner, and from Finishing Line Press author. And if you guys out there want to donate, anybody out there that wants to donate to New York Parrot, we are available at paypal.me/nyparrot, paypal.me/nyparrot. You'll see the link at the bottom on the link at the bottom of the thing. So this Parrot Literary Corner, and you will be able to get in touch with me at Literary Corner at NewYorkParrot.com. And we are the best and only show globally hosting writers, artists, creative minds. And thank you very much to our audience. Please subscribe. Do not forget, hit that subscribe button. Tell us what you think. We want to hear. Thank you very much for your time, Deborah, and thank you to our viewers. And please tell others about us as you go along in life. Find some creative minds for us. We need plenty of creative minds and dialogue out there. So thank you again.
Thank you, Dustin, and thank you.